Hey folks, this is Vint with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly check out Sins of a Solar Empire 2. So this video is going to be geared more toward beginners who just recently got into the game but don't know what they're doing, as well as folks that are on the fence as to whether or not they want to buy it. I'm hoping that by showing you some of the basic stuffs, you'll be able to make some kind of informed decision on whether or not you'd like to pick it up for yourself. And again, if you already own the game, but you're a little confused by all the different iconography and the different races that are in the game, well, keep watching. We'll go over those and hopefully you'll learn something. We'll go ahead and start here on the main menu. I mean, it's one thing to play the game, but I'm sure you folks at home that don't own the game want to know how you can actually set this up. You know, what can you do with it? So yeah, if we go to new game here under single player, you can filter between small 2-player maps, medium 3 to 5-player maps, large 6 to 8-player maps, and huge 9 to 10-player maps. There's a good bit of maps all across the board there. And you'll want to pay extra attention to this stars value here. Some of these maps are multi-star maps, which means that typically you start in your own star system, and you'll need a special technology to go from one star to another. So if you think back to, like, say, Warcraft 2, for example, or whatever, StarCraft. In Warcraft 2, if you picked like an island map where you started on your own little island or continent, you would need to build boats to get from one island to the other. Well, it's kind of similar here, but in this case, you'll need to research a special technology to get from one star to another. So you'll kind of be isolated for a little bit, at least until mid-game when you actually research that technology. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, then you'll want to look for like a multi-star map like this one. Okay. Now there are scenarios as well. Keep in mind that I own all of the DLC. I got everything for like a really cheap price during a deep sale. So yeah, there are scenarios, but I believe a lot of these are part of some kind of DLC. I would look into that. There's multiplayer as well. There's not a whole lot of games out here, but I'm content to play against the computer. There are a number of different settings that you can set it up with, which is really nice. There's replays and there's modding. Now, I will cover this in a different video probably, but I found Star Trek Armada 4, which I'm a huge fan of Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion, which is the game before this, and there was a Star Trek Armada 3 mod. Okay, now there's a 4 mod, but it's still alpha. Only the Federation faction is currently playable right now. This game, Sins of a Solar Empire 2, is still early, so mods are just starting to surface. Okay, I also found Galactic Empire Plus. So that's also like a Star Wars mod. Only the Galactic Empire is in there. No Rebel Alliance or New Republic or anything like that. But there is, via mod.io, there is a mod list of different ones that you can subscribe to. Now, keep in mind, right now there's an issue, at least with this current build. If you subscribe to something and try to activate it, it'll say like it's trying to install or whatever, but it doesn't really tell you like the progress. So it looks like it's stuck. I found it better to like manually move the mod files in the correct mod folder on my desktop rather than do it through in-game right now. It's just faster. But you can do it through here in-game via mod.io. Some of them I'm sure are fast loading, other ones take forever, like Star Trek Armada 4. So there is in-game support for modding via mod.io. However, it's not like 100% perfect yet. I think in the test round, there's actually functionality where you can see the progress of an installation, which is kind of nice of a mod. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the game now and we'll show you around a bit. I guess it makes sense before we do that to show you the game lobby system so you can see how you can set this up. Now, you can click on your name here to change your portrait. First, you have to choose a faction. Let's go ahead and come back here. We'll choose, there's 6 factions. Well, technically there's 3 factions, but each one has 2 sub-factions. So there's the TEC, which has the Enclave and the Primacy, the Advent, which has the Reborn and the Wrath, and the Vasari, which has the Exodus and the Alliance. They all play in a somewhat unique way, and we'll go over that later. But for right now, let's just go ahead and pick the TEC Enclave. And now if I click on my name, I'll be able to choose like an icon, a primary color. I can choose a portrait down here if I want to. It's nothing too great, but I mean, you can change that here as well if you'd like. So that's really cool. And you can also, as far as the AI is concerned, you can pick their faction if you want to. You can pick their icon, their portrait, and whatever. But you can also choose between easy, medium, hard, unfair, or nightmare, or even impossible difficulty. I only play on easy, and that's challenging enough for me. And then you can choose between aggressive or defensive behavior. Nothing more than that, unfortunately. If you are playing with, say, 3 or 4 people, there's a teams button down here, and you'll be able to assign different teams. So if you want to do like a 2-on-1, for example, if you're new to the game, you can have like you and an AI versus a single AI, so that the AIs can duke it out while you're kind of like on the sideline learning the game. That's how I spent the majority of my first few play sessions, getting used to everything. So just to recap, if I were to go to, say, I don't know, 6 players, hit setup game, and if I go down here to 2 teams, I could do something like this if I want to. I could do like a 3-on-1, I could make it super unbalanced, or I can do like a 2-on-1 kind of thing. Or you can even do teams of 4, 4 teams, 6 teams, whatever you want. So that's great that you can customize it that way. There's also a map settings option. Planets will actually move and orbit in this game, so you can toggle that on or off. I'll show you that in a little bit. And there's also some other things that you can adjust as well. So if you want to see that in greater detail, go ahead and just pause the video here and browse through it at your own leisure. All right, so I loaded up a saved game. I'm going to go ahead and just show you around the interface a bit. I'm going to zoom out so you can kind of see what's going on here. My faction is blue. I have a friendly faction in yellow, and I'm currently attacking red here on the bottom right. As you can see, the maps are typically broken up into planets, and they are connected via these lanes, and ships will be able to move between these lanes to go from location to location. Now, if we take a look at the interface on the very top, there's a lot of stuff to go over. So on the very top left, you'll see civilian research and military research. These are 2 separate tech trees that you'll have to spend resources on in order to go up these trees. They go from left to right. Now, it's important to stress also that there are different columns. It starts off with Tier 1 here, Military 1, Military 2, Military 3, Military 4, Military 5. You will need to construct a certain number of military structures in order to get enough points to even start researching that particular tier. So as of right now, for example, this Military 5 tier, I currently have 15 out of the 25 points needed to even begin researching anything under this column. So you'll have to construct special military structures that give you points towards this, okay? There are structures that you can construct in orbit of your planets that you have, but there are also some buildings that you can construct on your planets that will also do this. There's a number of different ways to get these points. And likewise, under the civilian research tree, right now I'm on civilian 4 column. So I've got 10 out of 15 points there that I need in order to start researching anything under that column. And again, you're going from left to right. And if you hover over a technology, it'll give you an like a estimate on how much it'll cost you in order to research that particular thing. And if you even go further down the tree, sometimes it'll add up a number of things like for you. So you can kind of see the total cost if you're queuing up multiple things at the same time. Now, new to this game are something called exotic resources, and I'll show you that in a little bit, but you will need exotic resources in order to research some of these technologies. So that's the tech tree for you, and it's also worth mentioning real quick as a beginner tip that if you queue something up to be researched, you can actually click on the bottom here and drag it to wherever you want. And if you put it to the front of the line, it'll begin researching that instead. So you can reorder your technologies on the bottom queue here if you just click and drag. The next window over is diplomacy. I rarely use this, but I guess in a cooperative game with other people, you could open some diplomatic offers and send resources to your friends, or you can get resources back if you'd like. Again, typically I haven't used this too much because I'm too busy blowing things up, but there is a diplomacy screen here that you can mess around with. Minor factions. So there will be random minor factions on the map that you can interact with. And they typically have 4 tiers that you can throw these influence points into in order to gain their abilities. It's kind of like, I believe it's like Civilization 6, if I'm not mistaken, Civilization 5, something like that, where you gain more and more and more influence with a minor faction to where you start gaining their benefits. Well, the same thing is happening here. Throughout the game, you're going to be researching technology and constructing buildings to get something called influence points. And these influence points just automatically generate over time up to your maximum that you currently have right now. In this case, I have 6 out of 6. And I'll be able to spend those influence points in order to unlock tiers. Okay, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. And I will gain certain abilities that I can activate again with influence. Okay, so for example, under tier 1, I can spend 1 influence point to build an emergency gauze defense platform somewhere in my empire. Different factions will give you different benefits, so I'm not going to show them all here. There's a pirate faction, for example, where you can send raids out, or you can buy ships and they will help you. Yeah, different things like that. So you're going to see different minor factions with different abilities. Long story short, spend influence here to gain benefits with them. They will also offer you deals from time to time to everybody. It's like an auction. You can spend your influence points in order to bid on those auctions and possibly win it. Keep in mind, however, whatever you bid, you lose. Even if you lose the entire auction there, you still lose whatever you bid. So if I bid all 6, but someone else got like 8 influence or bid 8 influence, I still lose the 6 I put into it. So you typically in an auction, you get to keep, the losers get to keep whatever they didn't, or whatever they bid. In this case, you lose what you bid regardless of whether or not you win or lose. Now, this is a super helpful button here. It's military command. This is where you can actually see all of your capital ships and your star bases under a single click. So rather than having to hunt for them in your empire, clicking on them, and then interacting with them, you can do it from here to some degree. So if I go to the capital ships tab, for example, I can see that I could actually, there's an up arrow with a plus. That means I can upgrade an ability. As these capital ships level up, you'll be able to level up their individual abilities, which is great. Now, this video is not going to go into each individual capital ship. I don't have enough time for that, at least in this video. So long story short, however, you can manage all of your capital ships from here. Don't neglect these ship items. If I click on an empty item slot, I will be presented with consumables that will just be used either automatically or manually, however you decide to do it. And there's also like offensive, defensive, and utility things. For example, this war reporter right here will give me an influence point. This is another way you can get influence points outside of like structures. Some of your ships can actually like give you economic benefits and stuff, which is kind of cool. So yeah, there's different abilities, different things that you can activate here and install. Keep in mind that these things will install at a normal pace if you're in a system with a shipyard. Okay, but if you're on like an enemy system or a place where there's no shipyard, they will be installed like, I don't know how much slower, but it's really slow. So if you're going to be doing some major upgrading across your fleet, make sure they're at home next to a shipyard to get them to install all of those things faster. The star bases, same thing. If you come over here, you'll be, as you build star bases, you'll be able to construct various offensive, defensive, and utilities in order to make them more powerful. Keep in mind the different factions have different upgrades that you can attach. Again, I'm not going to get into that in great detail, but each faction will behave slightly differently. So don't be afraid to experiment, play around, and see which factions you like best. Like that other screen, there's this Colonized Planets button that you can click on, and from here you'll be able to manage a number of things across all of your planets. You don't have to like go to this planet and then come down here and find the right buttons to click on to build something. You don't have to do that. You can click on the Colonized Planets button up here, and you can manage logistics, defense, and the surface. Now, the logistics side of this, you will need logistical slots in order to actually continue building anything, and you'll have to upgrade those slots. So for example, you've got Kaylee down here on the bottommost row, and right now there's a little logistics 1 there. I can upgrade this so I can get more slots to build in. So let's see if we can find Kaylee somewhere on the interface. Here it is. We'll just zoom right to that planet. So this is the planet that we were just looking at under this menu here. And if we were to try and build something, let's go ahead and click on this for the build menu. You can see that here it says civilian 2 out of 8 and military 5 out of 20. So this logistics is for the civilian slots here, and this defense button to upgrade your defensive stuffs, that is for the military slots here. So if you're out of, say, civilian slots, then you want to click on the cogwheel here, the logistics button, in order to upgrade it. If you're out of military slots, you want to click on the next one over to the right of it, and that will get you more military slots. Keep in mind, there is a maximum to this. So you're not going to be able to build as much as you want in orbit of a planet. You're going to have to pick and choose what you're going to specialize these planets in. And just to kind of give you like a quick overview of all of these different structures, you've got metal extractors and crystal extractors. Depending on the planet that you take over, there may be like crystal asteroids in orbit that you can mine out. Now, unlike Rebellion, Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion and the games before it, these do take up civilian slots. So like in Sins of a Solar Empire, like 1 or Rebellion, you could just build as many of these crystal extractors up to its maximum. Like there's 2 here in orbit. So I could just click on this twice. But if I do that, you'll see the civilian slot just went 4 out of 8 from 2 out of 8. So these orbital extractors do take up civilian orbital slots. It's a huge change between the earlier Solar Sins games and this one. So that's something to watch out for. Then you've got other structures like factories and heavy factories. These civic research buildings or research stations for the TEC faction, this will give you those civilian research points that will be put toward your civilian research tree here. That ties back to that. Likewise, this military research station will give you the military points that you need for the military tree here. So that's just, again, one of the ways where you can get further along in your tree. So you can build these in orbit. There's a broadcast center here. And again, this is just for the TEC faction. The other factions have their own variations of this. But this will spread culture throughout the galaxy, I guess. And unlike the other Sins games, culture will buff or debuff. Okay, it doesn't planet flip like in previous Sins games. Like in previous games, you could kind of just like focus on culture and wait and then start flipping planets. Here, it just gives a buff or debuff, and the different factions will have different technologies that will, determine what those buffs or debuffs are. Okay, some are better at culture, others, other factions are not. So, long story short, if you hover over a planet, it's kind of hard to see on the screen there, but on the very bottom of that tooltip window, it says Dominant Culture, Dad's Gaming Addiction 100%, Commerce Credit Income Rate / Population plus 10%. So I'm receiving that Commerce Credit Income Rate Population plus 10% buff because I have the Dominant Culture there. Okay, so that's what that broadcast center does, and there's more mechanics behind that. There's a recharge rate, pushing culture out into the galaxy. There's a whole mechanic behind that I'm not going to get into. But as a beginner, throw a couple of these down and watch the culture spread. Okay, and you get buffs or debuffs for that. The exotic refineries here are very important so that you can build exotics. You'll be able to build 4 out of the 5 exotic materials right away. But Quarnium, the green one, is a special one that you'll have to research separately. And there's actually I'll just jump to it now. There's a button on the very top of your window that lets you see how many you have. You'll be able to like spend resources in order to build these manually. If you try to research something or build something that requires an exotic that you don't have, it'll just automatically start queuing it up for you. Okay, so as you can see down here, I have a bunch of things queued up, like reserved for Marza Dreadnought, this Terranite. So I was building a Dreadnought, and it automatically queued up the necessary exotics for me. Keep in mind, this Cornium, it's its own research thing in your tech tree. Okay, so yeah, exotics, that's what that's for. You've got some other structures here, true. I'm not going to get into this right now. I'll explain the trade ports later. That's a unique thing to the TEC. And of course, there's if you have the appropriate DLC, you can build Titans, which are really powerful dreadnoughts, for lack of a better term, that will mess things up pretty big time. And then military stuff, you've got like defense cannons, retrofit bays that repair and upgrade. There's defense platforms. Again, different factions will have different variations of star bases and the like, and different super weapons. So I'm not going to get too much into that, but that's what these all down here represent. So I just realized I went off on a tangent. We'll come back to this real quick, this Colonized Planets button, so I can show you the rest of it. As I stated, you can construct the structures here right from this screen. You can also do that for your defensive stuff. Again, you'll need civilian slots in order to do that via this cogwheel, or the defense, you'll need military slots in order to, via these here, in order to build these. And then the planets will also have surface slots that you can put special structures into. So if I click on this, for example, I can build various economical structures. I can build various defensive structures. I can build various support structures. Note that these tooltips might say buildable planet types, in which case not all planets will be able to support certain items or structures. So just be wary that you may be able to construct this on this ice planet, but not on this fire planet over here. Okay. And from the surface as well, you'll be able to do mining. So in this Sins of a Solar Empire 2 game, there's both surface mining and there's orbital mining. The surface mining is done via the mining button here. There's one for money and one for metals and crystal. And we'll touch on that real quick now. The top middle, there's 3 types of resources that you'll be dealing with throughout the game typically, outside of these exotics over here. But there's credit income, there's metal production, and there's crystal production. Okay, and you'll get metal and crystal via this mining. You can just upgrade this mining here in order to get more of it. Whereas the commerce here is like on planet commerce. Okay. Likewise, like I said, if you go to the orbital side of things, you can build these crystal extractors or these metal extractors if you want to collect crystal or metal from orbit. Again, there may be some structures that certain factions have that also allow them to get money. Those are trade ports on the TEC side of it. We'll get into that in a little bit. So there's a markets button that you can click on. In the very beginning of the game, you may not have access to any markets because typically these are done via the minor factions, I believe. So if you go to the metal market, you'll be able to buy metal, sell metal. In the crystal market, buy crystal, sell crystal. As you can see, there may be like an up arrow depending on the fluctuations of the market. You know, crystal may be more valuable now instead of, you know, what it was earlier, that kind of thing. I've never been able to buy exotics except through auctions, but you can sell them from here for money. For the credits. So if you're interested in that, you can do that all from the markets menu. Now, this next one here, this is going to vary depending on what faction you're going to be playing as. So we'll come back to this one. Okay. Now, next to your timer, okay, as far as how much play time you have, you can spacebar, by the way, pause, unpause. You can also hit plus and minus on your keyboard to make the game speed up, slow down, up to like times 10. But there's a future orbits button. You can click on that. As you can see, the planets will actually rotate or revolve around other celestial bodies. So you'll note that this planet here, this asteroid that I have is connected to this one and this one down here. Whereas if I do this now, you'll know that the trade lanes are now changing. Like, this is now the primary contact for this Kron planet up here. That's really interesting. You can turn that off if you want to, but you'll see how the trade lanes change. That's something to keep in mind. So, like, if you have a bunch of defense on a planet, and it goes out of range, and now all of a sudden this other one is going to be coming into range of your enemy, and it's very lightly defended, you're going to want to hurry up and put defenses on that before your opponent like sends a bunch of ships there. So you could potentially lose a planet because you thought it was safe, but then it just revolved into a situation where it's now connected to enemy planets, and they can now send stuff over to it. So yeah, that's a mechanic that's really interesting. Just keep an eye out for that. On the bottom left here, you can toggle this on or off, but these are missions. These are like objectives or side missions that you can complete in order to get some kind of reward. So I recommend this for new players. It'll kind of keep you grounded and focused on a particular goal or two, and it'll give you some extra resources to boot should you need them. Another cool thing is the ability to make fleets. So this is something I didn't learn until like 2 or 3 games in, so quick tip for you. You can select a whole bunch of ships, or just 1 or 2 ships if you want. Let's just select half here. And then if we click on the little plus sign up here on the top left, it says add fleet or planet. So I'm going to click on the button. So now I can move this fleet around, and I can just select it from up here. Now, in addition to that, you'll be able to reinforce it. If you click on that fleet on the upper left here, if you click on it, you'll see that there's a build menu of ships down here. If you build a ship from here, it will automatically reinforce into this fleet when it's ready. So for example, if I click on this, I don't know, this Caleb Gauze frigate. Let's click on 5 of them. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look in the upper left-hand corner, there's my beta fleet in white. And then to the right of it in blue, again, it's hard to see, it says queued ships, Caleb Gauze frigate ×5, and how much supply it costs to do that. There is a population cap that you'll have to worry about. You can raise the population cap via the military research area. It's usually on the very top here. And like this says max supply 1500. I could research that. And if you hover over the military command right here, it'll tell you used supply 925, max supply 1000. But if I research that, it'll go from 1000 to 1500 now in parentheses. So that'll give me more population cap for my military. So yeah, long story short, you can create fleets. And if you decide to like combine them, you could select all of them, hit the plus sign again. You'll note that some of them were removed, like all of these white dots are removed from these 2 and put into this green one, this Delta fleet down here. You can click and drag to get rid of them. So I could do that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Now I've got this Delta fleet that is ready to go. And again, I can reinforce it right from here if I want to. Now, combat is its own thing, and I don't want to get too deeply into that in a beginner video, but I do want to draw your attention to some important things. If you look on the tooltip on the right, it says TDN Mobius 3. That's its current level. And again, as you level up these capital ships, you unlock more of their abilities and level them up. Now, a ship has 3 primary ways to defend itself. There's shields, armor, and hull. First, the shields deplete, then the armor, and then the hull. In capital ships, if the hull gets depleted, it goes into a crippled status, which means it can't do anything except run. Can't fire, can't do anything, and it'll draw from a separate health pool that only pops up when that happens. So, but once that crippled ship hull point value is gone, the ship is gone. It's blown up. Okay. Now, weapons, you'll see different weapons on different ships. This one has a 2 times gauze cannon, has 4 times medium autocannon, 3 times light autocannon. The DPS value is each cannon because there are firing arcs in this game. So it's giving you like 9.5 for the light autocannon. That is per light autocannon. So there's 3 of them, so 9.5 times 3. Okay. And it's giving you the DPS for one of that thing. Okay, because again, you may not have all guns to bear on one particular target. That's why they separate them out. Now, on the very top, it says experience and durability. Durability is the ship's, I guess, ability to like reduce incoming damage. And the higher the durability, the more it can shake off when something hits it. However, there's something called Pierce. Again, in the same tooltip next to the weapons DPS, there's Pierce. Pierce damage offsets durability. I don't know the math behind it. I could, I guess, try and figure it out. Long story short, if you're up against a starbase, something that has a lot of durability, build ships with a lot of Pierce. Okay, it'll help you get through those tough starbase defenses and those high durability ships. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the three different factions. I'm not going to delve too deeply into the sub-factions. Just know that they do behave slightly differently from each other. Okay, so you'll have to figure out what playstyle you like. Now, the TEC is probably the most beginner-friendly out of all of them, at least in my opinion. The Enclave, the sub-faction, the Enclave, is more defensive in nature, whereas the Primacy is more offensive in nature, at least based on what I've seen. But both are fairly economical. Now, their special thing are something called trade ports. On the very top of the screen in the special area here, there's a trade button that you can click on, and it opens up a window. Now, this faction will gain something called export points. Anytime you see a cube, like a blue cube, when you're constructing something like a trade port, whatever, and you'll see that in a little bit, you'll get export points. And that's what these yellow crates here represent. You can take those yellow crates away from one resource and throw it into another resource. So this faction is it's so flexible economically. If you're low on crystal, you can take away from, say metal or credits and put it into crystal. Now, keep in mind, there's also something that you'll have to look out for. There's called capacity. Let's go ahead and take a look at a trade port so I can show you what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and zoom out and we'll go to our home planet here. And if we take a look at the tooltip, on the bottom of the tooltip, you'll see trade capacity. The more trade ports that you construct at a location, typically the better the capacity and the more export points that you get. In this case, I have 2 trade ports in orbit because the second one is highlighted under trade capacity. That has given me the 2 trade export points, as well as 2 yellow capacity for credits, 1 metal capacity, and 1 purple capacity. Capacity are the empty slots here. Like, okay, so if I take away all of that, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 capacity for credits. I have a total of 6 export points, but I have 10 capacity for it. So I may have export points, but I may not have the capacity for it. So you kind of have to find ways to get both capacity and export points. Typically, though, you'll have enough capacity as long as you're building those trade ports. Keep in mind, though, it depends on where you put these things, too. Like your home planet, like the Terran planet here, has, as you can see, a wide variety. It has capacity. It gives you export points, those blue cubes. It also gives you the yellow credits, the metal and the crystal. But if you go to, say, an asteroid, the trade port may not be as nice. So I don't know if I have the ability to do it, but let's see if I could find it. Here we go. Exotic, light factory. There it is, trade port. So it only has the 1 trade capacity, and it only gives 1 export point, 1 yellow credit, 1 metal. It's pretty low. And certain planets only give certain types. If I can find one, there's an ice planet. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that and go to the trade port there. There it is. So as you can see, this one gives 1 export for the 1 trade port, 1 export point for the 1 trade port, but also only 1 yellow credit and 2 purple crystals. It does not give metal capacity at all. So certain planets will give you certain capacity bonuses. So keep an eye out for both capacity and export points as you're building up your empire. But this is the main shtick of the TEC. Highly flexible economic powerhouse right here. The Vasari are an interesting race. First of all, they don't start off with a planet. They just start off with a fairly large fleet. You get like a capital ship and some smaller ships, and enough resources to actually build a second or even a third capital ship right from the beginning of the game if you're willing to sacrifice your economy. So that's a decision you'll have to make right away. How big of an offense do you really want in the very beginning of the game? How much economical resources are you willing to give up to jumpstart your economy in order to like get extra military power in the beginning of the game? It's really interesting. And the Alliance sub-faction deals more with like allying with minor factions and getting the most out of them, whereas the Exodus can actually destroy entire planets, kind of like the Death Star in Star Wars, in order to gain a crap ton of resources and exotics. So they're a really interesting bunch. So there are two main things about the Vasari that I just wanted to mention that I seem to notice right away. First of all, they primarily use metal and crystal. They don't generate credit income at all. Sometimes they'll get it from like salvaging shipwreckage, like looting shipwreckage, but I've only used it for like trading for more metal or crystal as I need it. So they don't generate credit income at all, which is really interesting. And the other thing, they have something called phase resonators that they can build across their network of planets. And instead of the trade port button, you have something called phase resonance. And the way this works, if we click on the button, we just gain these resonance points as we construct these buildings, these orbital buildings. And we can throw points into one of three trees: mobility, combat, and utility. And it goes from the bottom up. The more points you throw into a category, the more powerful you become in that category. So at combat 1, your weapon reload is 3%, minus 3%. At level 2, it's minus 6%. Go all the way to the top, weapon reload minus 15%, weapon damage plus 9%, phase missile bypass shields chance plus 12%. The Vasari are also good. Their phase missiles seem to bypass shields on a regular basis, which is really nice. That's another thing that they've got going for them. So whereas the TEC focus on like an economic trading thing, the Vasari here have this phase resonance mechanic that allows them to buff themselves up. Combat, I already showed you that. Mobility, I haven't leveled up all of these, but this is primarily for like phase jump speed. You've got max speed, so I guess it's just moving your ships faster and jumping from place to place faster. You've got utility over here. Ability, antimatter cost. Certain ship abilities, like capital ships, will use antimatter to activate their abilities. This allows the recharge to be like, the more antimatter you have, the more special abilities you can pop off. And that's what this is mainly for. Ability cooldown. So if you want your capital ships to use a lot more abilities, then you may want to go up this tree as well. But yeah, phase resonance. That's what the Vasari are typically going to do in their games. Last but not least, we have the Advent. The Advent seem to be very technological in the way they behave, and they've also got this little religion thing going on. So there's two factions to them, or the two subclass factions. There's the Reborn, which seem to be more about like sacrificing friendly ships for benefits as well as resurrecting dead ships. It's an interesting combo they've got going there. And then you've got the Wrath subfaction, which seems to focus on assimilation, like cultural assimilation and gaining benefits for doing so, capturing planets quickly, that kind of thing. So, yeah, you can play around with whatever one you like. As far as their special abilities, there's two main ones that I've noticed when playing them. So first and foremost, again, as with the TEC and as with the Vasari, there's a special button on the very top of the interface here. This one is called Unity. And these are 6 abilities that you can activate using something called focus. Focus is like a resource that you generate over time. You can spend that focus in order to activate these abilities. To get more focus, you have to go to a planet, and there's a focus button that will allow you to generate more focus. It also increases something called your Temple of Unity cap. There are structures that you can build called Temples of Unity that will provide you with more, like, you have to build Temples of Unity. It says Unity available here. You need Temples of Unity for these Unity points. And then you spend those Unity points in order to unlock these powers. Now, the sub-factions will have different powers. Okay, so the Reborn will have 6, and the Wrath will have 6. Some overlap and some don't. So, again, you'll want to pick the sub-faction that you kind of like. But yeah, you spend Unity points that you get from building Temples of Unity to unlock these, as well as tiers. So there's like this cleanse. There's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, okay? And then if you want to activate those abilities, you have to spend focus. And again, focus is a separate resource that you generate over time that you can use to use these abilities. There's resurrection. So as you can see, this is probably the Reborn that I'm playing right now because they focus on sacrifice. And yeah, there's sacrifice there. Resurrection there. So this is definitely the Reborn faction that I just loaded up here. So that's one shtick that they've got. One main thing. They build Temples of Unity, and they also upgrade this focus down here so that they can use these abilities. Okay. And the other one involves something called PSI power. There are various structures and technology. I don't know exactly where they are in the research tree, but there are abilities in this tree that allow you to increase your PSI power. And PSI power is like a general buff across abilities that use it, that have the capability to use it. For example, let's go ahead and click on this capital ship here. Okay, it's a level 6 capital ship. If I hover over this ability here, it's called Animosity. You'll see in green, it says damage plus 20%, plus in purple, 4.5%. That 4.5% in purple is a buff from my PSI power. So certain abilities in the game will draw on this PSI power to buff itself. Okay, so long story short, wherever you can buff your PSI power, great, because different abilities will be using it. So those are the two main things that the Advent has going for them. So I know the video's gone on fairly long, so we'll go ahead and just end it here. But hopefully it gave you newcomers a chance to see what this game has to offer and what the different factions are like. Speaking of which, if you're an experienced player and have some good tips or have some information on what a particular faction can do that I didn't go over, feel free to leave that information in the comments below. This is Vince. Thanks for watching. I'll catch y'all next time. Take care.